Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Mel Sherwood, and for the past 10 years, I've been working with entrepreneurs, business leaders, and their teams, helping them to pitch and present with confidence. In this series of interviews, I will be in conversation with some of my favorite professional speakers who are absolutely at the top of their game. They'll be sharing a little bit about how they came to be a professional speaker and also some of their top tips to help you and me to become better communicators. My guest today is a multi-award-winning global expert and certified speaking professional. She's also authored several books on leadership and productivity. Through her presentations, keynote speeches, workshops, and coaching, she supports and skills middle managers to boost productivity, self-leadership, and confidence. Now, I first met her at a conference in Australia for professional speakers, and I just loved her red lipstick, and we got along like a house on fire. So I know she's going to have some great insights and advice for us today. So I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Sally Foley-Lewis. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mel. It's an absolute delight to be here. And let's look, first and foremost, woo! Well, one of them went off. Let's do the others. Yay!
Yay!
And then we'll throw that other one in the bin because it didn't work.
Thank you.
Oh! It's hard to find good help these days. That's my happy 10 years, Mel.
Thank you so much. Thank you for actually acknowledging that. I really appreciate it. And people say to me, being in business for 10 years is, reasonable achievement. So I'm quite pleased. And I thought, well, why not? We might as well actually celebrate it. I'm one of those people who just keep soldiering on and working, and I sometimes don't take a step back to reflect. So thank you for that.
Can I share with you that when my husband got his 10 years service certificate, I actually went in and just double checked when I started my business, and I mocked up my own. Congratulations on 10 years long service working for myself.
Well, that's what you have to do when you work for yourself. How long actually have you been a professional speaker?
Oh, more than 10 years, but I'm just going to say that I started my own business in 2010, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay. So, and doing fabulously. Now, I know that you've got like a really diverse background, from recreation offer in a psychiatric hospital to corporate roles, including being a CEO. So I'm intrigued. How did you end up specializing in working with middle managers?
Well, I think the landing point was understanding what it's like to be a middle manager firsthand, and then building from there, having seen middle management from every vantage point. So from when I was very green, very new, starting in a role at the bottom of the organization and working up through a whole range of positions. And as I said, including being a middle manager, all the way through to a CEO and also serving on boards, I could see just how neglected and yet how powerful and how much potential is untapped in the middle. So I'm passionate about middle managers being supported, being developed, because I truly believe they are perfectly positioned to be the powerhouse of an organization.
Absolutely. And I think you really, I saw that when I was in corporate as well, that, there is this bit, and often people are kind of put into management roles without the support and training to learn how to manage effectively. And they just, so I love what you do. I think it's brilliant. So
thank you.
Given that I'm all about presentation skills and being able to communicate effectively in front of an audience, whether that's an audience of 1 or 100, and whether it's an audience online or in the room, I'm going to ask you, how important do you think it is for middle managers or anybody to actually learn how to present well?
It's absolutely critical, because what I say to my middle managers and any poor soul who happens to be plonked in front of me is that you are not just informing. Now, my message to middle managers, and the reason why I say they're perfectly positioned, is because if you just simply think that your role is to inform, then you are missing out completely. So for middle managers, they are in the perfect position to inspire the front line, to collaborate with their peers, and then influence upwards. So being able to present, being able to pull your pitch, your question, your your argument, your defending of an idea
Yeah.
together is absolutely critical. And, a lot of middle managers who have to defend a team's way of doing something, or middle managers who are seeking support for something, or middle managers who get a question on notice, you need to be able to articulate the right response and even have the confidence to say, great question, I'll need to look that up and make sure I give you a more a accurate response.
Actually, yeah, just touching on that thing about not knowing the answer to the question, often people really worry about that, don't they? But there's people will respect you if you actually put your hand up and say, look, I'm not sure, or I'd like to give that some further thought, and I'll get back to you. And as long as you get back to them, then there's no issue, and it's the key getting back to them. So
Absolutely. And when I was a CEO, if my staff ever sort of faffed around a bit, I'd say, if you don't know, it's okay. You don't have to know, but you do have to go find out.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose, as a seasoned speaker, you've probably seen lots and lots and lots and lots of different presentations and different presentation styles. Is there any particular style or approach that you find more or less effective and engaging when you're listening?
One of the things that I'm finding quite fascinating is picking up when the speaker's not reading the audience. And so they're not being able to adjust their own style depending on the audience they have in front of them. And my case in point is recently at a function, the speaker was speaking to a room full of speakers, a hard gig, right? Because you're sitting there.
We know it.
A room of your peers judging you just a little extra more than normal. So not an easy situation. However, this speaker wasn't able to read the room enough to know that, yay, let's give everyone a round of applause. And yay, no, give the answer, round of applause. Every probably 20 to 40 seconds, there was a call for a round of applause. And so there was read the room. It got to maybe 3 applauses in, and it went to.
Oh yeah. Oh, and you can just feel the energy in the room, really. Oh.
Yeah, the energy just dissipated, and the speaker didn't adjust. And so I don't mind, when you sort of do 2 or 3 and if you work out, okay, this audience is not up for this, I need to stop doing that. I need to adjust whatever I'm doing to make sure that I'm back re-engaging, and being able to have that presence of mind, even with the nerves, even with everything else that's going on, to be able to pick up on the energy, I think is amazing if you can do it.
Yeah, and I think it is part of it is about being fully present. Like presenting is all about being fully present. But what happens, I think, for a lot of people is that the nerves kick in, and they've prepared for one thing, and they just need to deliver that. And you will have seen it yourself, and I've seen it where people just, and then they start just talking quickly, and they just want to get it over with, and there's no actual noticing whether the message is landing or whether people are taking it in or not. It's like, just want to get through it. So have you got any tips for people who might be experiencing that?
Breathe, oxygenate your brain, slow it down. Actually, don't speed up, slow it down so that you can take that in. And I truly believe if someone is sticking to their script, my question is, do you know your content? And so, and you might know your content and it's purely notes and script driven because of nerves, and I get that, I totally get that, but I do have that question in the back of my mind, because if you're stuck on a script, I'm wondering, you're not gifting yourself enough space and time and presence to enjoy the actual moment. And I know some people will be thinking, there's no way I'm going to enjoy giving a presentation, but if you can relax and go into conversation mode and deliver your content because you know it so well, then you are able to react to something that's being done and actually engage with the audience a bit more. You're able to bounce off and from and with the audience. And I do believe that when we know the content so well, we're able to actually demonstrate how much passion we've got for it. Now, if it's a work-based presentation and you might not have a whole lot of passion for that little topic, I get it. But have passion for the achievement you'll have passion for the outcome that you can get from it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that there's a big concern there when we aren't slowing it down, we aren't oxygenating the brain through good quality breathing, that we miss so many opportunities to be even more endearing and engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my own perspective, the moment I actually stopped delivering presentations and started having conversations with an audience, it completely transformed what I do. And as a keynote, my keynotes are really interactive, because actually I don't just stand up and talk at the audience, and that's just my style. Some people like to speak for 45 minutes, and they'll still be interacting, but not necessarily in the same style and approach as I do. So yeah, I think it is really important for us to find our own style, but also you are so right. Just taking a moment to breathe, it completely transforms the way that people are coming across, I think, because it makes you fully present when you focus on that. So from your point of view, I'd love to know, how do you actually prepare for a keynote or a workshop? And do you prepare the same way for each, or do you have a different approach?
So I'm actually just launching for the last little bit, I've had a brand new keynote. And so practicing. And did I say practicing? And so I walk up and down my hallway. My dogs know my keynote. They love it. They lap it up. Get that? Pun intended. So it's practicing. And I don't aim to hit the speech word for word. I aim to hit the meaning and the intent and the message that I want to get across. And there's 5 key points. And so 2 key points, I want them to be more inspirational. One particular point, I want it to be actionable. And then there's more inspirational, transformational. So when I'm speaking about point 1, it's about inspiring them to reconnect with blah, 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 blah. That's what's going on in my head. I know the content because it's my content. It's my area of expertise, and I'm absolutely all over it and know it. So I'm okay if I'm not word for word, but I'm absolutely on point. So to me, it's about practicing it. It's about washing myself in it and taking it in so cellular and so deeply that I can just start anywhere. Also, I can start anywhere within the presentation and I'm good to go. And the other thing that this practicing and saying it over and over and over again is that I know where I can expand it. I also know where I can contract it, because in a lot of situations as professional speakers, we know you'll be booked for a 1-hour keynote. You get there and, we only got half an hour. Not a problem. Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do believe that that's the process. And also, even when I'm customizing it too, because I have the structure of my keynote, this new one, set up that there's one particular element in there that I can pull out and customize really specifically for the client. So now that I know every other bit, this bit, I just need to make sure I've got that in hand. So, I also know the keynote to the depth where I don't need a slide to prompt me. So if everything fails and I'm standing there in the dark with my phone torch on my face going, hello folks, we can get through this, we should be able to do that. So that's the level of familiarity with your content I believe you should be. And I guess that's it. You prompted me before. When I hear or see a speaker who's using someone else's content, without referencing or without acknowledging or without crediting that other person, it really concerns me. I quote people for sure, but I don't, the stories I tell are my stories.
Yeah.
I've been in the back of a room and the speaker started speaking and I sat there and I listened, that's actually my life. So
Wow.
they'd seen me speak, and so they were using my content. Now, they thought that was a form of flattery, and I get that that's what they might think,
Yeah.
but it's not.
No,
So,
I had someone come up to me after a session once and said, "That was fantastic. I'm going to steal that." Like it was the best thing in the world. I'm like, that's
yeah.
not the greatest thing.
So I say to people now, and I think I've gotten a little bit older and a little bit crankier or something, but I do say, look, you obviously liked it, so that's really wonderful for my heart. It fills my cup up. Thank you so much. Please don't use it, but be inspired by it. And if you'd like some help to find your unique thing, then I could probably introduce you to some people, or I could help you in some way. And so it's my nice way of saying, don't you dare take my story.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, what we're talking about really has it's relevant for professional speakers and anyone who's doing speaking a lot and who has, is developing a keynote, and that key thing about practice. And I talk about preparation plus practice plus passion equals presentastic. So, but it's the practice. Yeah. But
Presentastic.
we often don't actually have the time that the time, like if you're a professional speaker, it's your job. You have to familiarize yourself. That's what elevates you to the next level and the next level in terms of professional speaking. You must practice. You've got to know it by heart. You've got to embody it. You've got to have that message oozing through your pores, basically. And that's what brings it alive, and that's what makes it your message. And so that's crucial to be a professional speaker. For a lot of people, their presentations are at work, or they're not speaking professionally, and they often don't have the time to practice. And I think that's what scares people. But often people who I work with in organizations, they're like, well, I just got told I have to give this presentation tomorrow, and I don't do that. So not having that preparation time. What are your recommendations? What are your suggestions for someone who's in a corporate environment or somewhere where they've been asked, can you deliver this presentation next week or something? And it might not be something that they're fully familiar with. Often it's about their own work, which is really helpful, and there's fewer nerves when you know what you're talking about. But yeah, what are your suggestions for people?
I think don't overcomplicate the thing. Go back to the brief. What's the question you've been tasked to answer? And so less is always more. No one's ever complained of a meeting finishing early.
So true.
So, so just go with that. And I think there are potentially two documents or two pieces of collateral that you can go into that meeting with. And one is the full complement of information, like an appendix, that you can put on the table in front of people, and then your presentation, which are just keywords or images that prompt you and remind you of what you're talking about. And if this is something that you're not super familiar with, it's part of your work, but of course you've got nerves at play, you've got senior people in the room who have got more power and authority than you've got strangers in the room, you may have stakeholders in the room, so no pressure, but get it right. All those things. So don't be afraid to have some notes, and I think that's okay, because being authentically you, to me, when I look at that, I think this person's put the effort in, they've prepared, and they're doing the best that they can. And the other thing I think we've all got to remember is that the audience doesn't see all the nerves, because the nerves are
really quite often.
That's right, because they're on the inside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the nerves are on the inside. Maybe your hands are shaking, or you might get a little bit of redness or whatever goes on for you. But the majority of the nerves are on the inside, and 99.9% of the audience, and I think that you'd probably know the stat better than me, actually want you to do well. They're like, yay, go you, So I think it's okay to have more collateral around you that helps you with your presentation, but just keep in mind they're support pieces, not the whole presentation. So you're not going to be like this reading
Yes.
every word
I'll
that's
see it.
on
Yeah.
the screen. It's a prompter. So,
Yeah.
and that comes back to booking the meeting room, dragging your workmates in there, getting some feedback, practicing.
Yeah, I always say to people, you don't want, when you're in front of that important audience, you don't want that to be the first time those words are coming out of your mouth. You need to have had a bit of a run through and whatever. And I think, yeah, you touched on it. Notes is absolutely fine. I encourage people, if they need notes, that's fine. And sometimes if I'm working on a new workshop, for example, I'll refer to my notes to make sure I've covered everything that I intended to share with people. And I think people are totally fine with that. If I see someone with notes, as you said, it shows that they're prepared. The only thing is when people actually are looking down and reading the whole thing word for word, and then we don't. That's public reading, not public speaking. So we want.
That's right. That's right. And I think one of the things you just reminded me of was oh, come back to me. Oh, that's it. When you write your speech out, or if you're writing some notes out, that's one thing. Please say it out aloud. I remember this particular keynote that is now my current keynote. I did all the writing first, and then when I was walking up and down the hallway with it, it's like, oh, this makes no sense, So you have to read it out loud so that you get that logic coming through as well. So really important.
I agree. And actually, I record it on my phone and I listen to it back, so I hear it from a different perspective, and it's really much easier to hear where the clunky bits are, or those transitions aren't working, or that I didn't explain something as well as I could have. So I'm a big fan of sort of recording it, because the other thing is too, when we write out a script, we write it the way we write and read, but we don't actually speak the same way. We speak in much shorter, punchier sentences. And so if someone's written out I can hear a beautifully written script, but it doesn't engage me in the same way as someone speaking it would.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I've got a specific question. So I've asked a few different people on what they'd like me to ask people in these interviews, and one of the questions is, what's the best way to end a talk without just saying thank you? Sorry to put you on the spot with that one.
No, that's I'm funny, so
I know.
So when I say that, I'm in the moment funny. So I'm not a comedian. I don't write jokes, but I will use anything and everything that's happening, and I will just soak that up. And so if something has happened, then I will feed that back and cycle that back in. If there's been some sort of an event that's happened at the whole convention that everyone knows about, and it's not going to be exclusionary because, oh, you had to be there, then I will somehow try and tie that in and use that in the wrapping up. If that's potentially something I could do. And so that's something that I would try to do rather than thank you. I do, when I'm doing online, I may do, look, before I give you my final words, are there any questions? Because I do not end on questions. And then I'll come in with some sort of linking of all the key points together in a paragraph, or some sort of, Sally Foley-Lewis with her famous quotes. Try to be inspirational at the end, but I don't say thank you. I would actually probably say back to you.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I have said in a very cheeky way, and it was all cheeky the whole way through, and it was not a huge audience. It was probably only about 100 people there. And I did say, you've been amazing and I've been even better. I'm Sally Foley-Lewis, back to you.
Love it.
And you can see that they're all going
to do that.
So, but I'm playful. Yeah. And so I don't want to necessarily say you should do this, because if you're not funny, or if you're not playful, or the presentation doesn't call for it, don't do it.
Yeah.
You've got to find that thing that's relevant for your message, for you and the audience.
Yeah. And I think if you've got a certain phrase or sentence or whatever that does wrap it up and that you can deliver in a way that sounds like it's the end, that's all you need to do, is just go to the end and wait and rapturous applause. So I think the audience generally sense when it's the end. And I have been in presentations before where the audience have sensed it's the end, and then the person starts up again, and I thought, oh gosh, you should have ended then, because that what felt natural and it really landed well. And so I think actually when I talk to people about preparing, I often suggest that, really, really properly work on the opening and properly work on the closing, and make sure that that's very familiar to you and you're able to say it smoothly and get that right. And it gives you confidence when you start well, but also it really helps land it at the end. And whatever happens in the middle, people don't worry so much about it if it's,
Right.
So
yeah. So my ending for my current keynote is "the middle matters."
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
And it's a hashtag, and it's a hashtag, "the middle matters." And I end on those 3 words if I don't have something playful to play with.
Yeah.
But I'll tie that in anyway. So,
of course, And so, it is really all about reinforcing your message. And actually, on that point, I do have another question around sort of how do you make sure that your audience gets those takeaways, that gets the messages that you're trying to communicate? What techniques do you use to make sure that they really understand and take away and take action potentially on what you're talking about?
Because like this keynote is the 5 habits of highly effective or high performing middle managers, and so they know they're getting 5.
Right.
So they're automatically listening for 5, and so it would be unfair, it would be making their job as an audience difficult if I don't actually articulate 5 numbers.
Yeah.
And so I'm very clear about value, and so the fingers up and everyone's going, oh, number 1, value. Yep. And I repeat the word in there, and then we move through to the second one, and then the third, blah, blah, 5. Yeah. And I restate probably 2 or 3, if not 4 times in that segment, what it is in each part of that, the 5, and I sum it up at the end as well. Yeah. So that, I actually have the 5 lines that then sum up and say, which is why the middle matters.
Yeah, great. And in your keynotes, do you mainly use you and slides? And I know, as you said before, if all goes pear-shaped, you don't actually need the slides. Do you use anything else, props or anything? Is that sort of your style, or have you seen anything used really effectively that helps really reinforce a message?
So I have used Mentimeter or those poll type platforms. I'll use whatever the client prefers, as long as they teach me how to use it to start with, or get them to set it up. And in the opening, because I do want at times, and it depends on the brief with the client, that I can get 2 types of input from the audience in my opening. And so then I actually use some of the words that the audience have given me in the next piece to take that forward, and I weave that in. And so so something like Mentimeter or is it Slider, whatever the one is that can get online with your device. Gee, I sounded very old then. This technological stuff with these young whippersnappers. So I'm not afraid of tech. I'm just not very good at it. So there's those sorts of things. Sometimes simple is also best. You don't have to overcomplicate things. Yeah. There was a group where I was once told that I would be walking into a semi-hostile environment. The prisoners is what I call them. Like, they'll be made to be there. No one actually invited them. They were told it was mandatory. And so what I did as a credibility booster was I didn't use PowerPoint slides. I used a flip chart, and I wrote on the flip chart, and I drew my model on a flip chart, and I talked about things, and I grabbed people's input and put that on the flip chart, because somewhere in my learning from speakers who are much better than me when I was doing speaker training, I heard that if you can draw a model on a flip chart as you're doing it, it makes you look clever.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And it does make you
So
look like you know your stuff, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Great.
So I did that as opposed to having slides because I wanted because I felt as though I may have needed to amplify my credibility early.
Okay. Yeah, nice approach. So you
Mm,
mentioned before about it depends on the brief from the client. And
mm.
I'd love to know what are some of the questions that you ask before a speaking gig, or whether you're running a workshop. What are the things that you need to know in order for you to deliver your best?
Yeah, definitely. So if I've spoken for them before, then I may ask questions like, how's the year been? Where are people at right now? How has X impacted the industry? Uh, what changes should I be aware of? And then about the event itself, I might dive into who's on before me, who's on after me, what's the audience going to be, what's their mindset like at the moment, are they about to get bad news if it's an internal management meeting and they're about to be hit with some bad numbers, or whatever change is coming, because we all know change is a good one. So, I ask those sorts of questions around where's the organization at, but I also ask questions like, what is off the table? What cannot be discussed? What are the no-go areas? How is the culture of the organization at the moment? So I actually ask those sorts of questions because I'm really concerned that I don't offend, number one, but also I don't make a situation worse, particularly where I'm the type of person that gets brought into an internal meeting and I'm supposed to be the rah-rah, when I'm after the accountant, the chief financial officer. No offense, CFOs, but it's money and it's numbers and it's spreadsheets. So go see Mel because she'll help you be a better presenter. I might be after the chief financial officer and then right before the CEO who's talking about the merger and acquisition and the potential role changes coming. And so I have to be very, very mindful of where people's moods will be at, what cannot be talked about. And I do like asking questions like, tell me the best speaker you've had before and what made them so good for your event. And then depending on my relationship and where I feel it's at, I'll trust my gut, and I may even ask, tell me about the worst speaker you had. What did they do that really didn't land
Yeah. Yeah.
for your
That's
people?
really so useful for you, in terms of how you approach it. It's crucial. And it's interesting because I talk about my not cure, but solution, I suppose, to nerves. More preparation equals fewer nerves. It's as simple as that, right? But actually, people think about preparing their content, but they don't think beyond what they want to say. And so actually the preparation involved in speaking with the organizer or the client, about what they're looking for, where, how everyone's feeling. If you could, get an understanding of the mood of, what they're trying to achieve. But also sometimes, if it's possible, depending on where I'm speaking, I'll actually ask the organizers if I can speak to a couple of people beforehand who will be attending the conference, for example, and I'll just have a chat about, what are you looking forward to most about the conference, what are you hoping to get out of it. And so you've got a sense of it. And then when I'm there, I'm then in a position to go, I was speaking with Sarah the other day, and she said that this is one of the things that she's facing at the moment, is how do other people feel. And you could get a sense, and that there's the audience then feel more connected to what you're talking about. And obviously you can't always do that, but it's useful to be able to ask those questions. The other things that I'm really keen to ask about, what's the equipment, where will I be? I always like to get a photograph of the room, all those practical things, because you fear the unknown. So when I'm speaking with people or training or coaching people who are about to deliver something and they're really nervous about it, I'm like, well, the more you can find out, the easier it will be when you get there. You're not going to get thrown a curveball, or you're not suddenly. I know I've had an experience for myself where I suddenly was handed a handheld mic and I didn't expect it.
Yes.
I use my hands a lot, so suddenly I've got only half my ability to communicate by having to hold this mic. And so, yeah, that taught me a really important lesson. So I always ask about all those nitty-gritty little details as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that's if you can, you show up early, you do a reconnaissance if and it was particularly if you're flying and into somewhere, if you can get in the day before, I think is really useful. It's a big risk to fly the same day, because you just airlines, enough said. No need to say any more about that. And so I think that ability to really, if you can get that information up front, it's really useful. But I also think get there early and walk the space. Get a real sense of just how much room have I got to fill and engage and project. And even with the microphone, I have to make sure that I am commanding the space that upon which I'm being paid to command or being asked to command. So, yeah.
Yeah. And actually, since I was a little kid, I've been performing since I was about 6, probably. And ever since I was a little kid, I used to always go and sit in different places in the audience before anyone got there, if I could. And it just gave me it gave me a connection to the audience and a different perspective on what they are looking at. So I'd also sort of pick out, I'd start to know where are the spots, the sight lines, or if, for example, someone moved too far forward on the stage and they're out of the light, as an actor, you always know where's my light, making sure you're in the light. So I find that definitely that getting there early, sitting in different places, and obviously getting onto the stage area, whatever that might be, and practicing going up the stairs and coming back down again, and all of that is so important.
You and I are so similar, because if I'm doing a workshop, I actually go to the wings at the furthest point and to look back to where I'll be and to make sure nothing's impeding the view. I haven't got a flip chart blocking anything. I actually bend down to where the chair is and sort of say, okay, no, I can see everything. I've got a good vantage point from both wings. So we are
definitely. And what do people see when they first walk into the room? And I don't know, so your handbag's not sitting there in the corner, or so that it's just like visually, for me, I'm quite visual like that. And I think from my performing background and just understanding the staging of things and how little tiny things can be distracting, I'm quite fussy about those things where I have an opportunity to have an influence on them. So
yeah, fantastic.
Just a question about books. Now, how many books have you published?
4. I'm editing number 5 at the moment. So okay. Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive effort. And what I'd love to know is, what are your thoughts on, for an aspiring speaker, how important is it to have a book?
Oh gosh, this is a big question, and it's a dividing question, because you throw me under the bus, bless you. Look, I'm a fan of writing books because I've written 4, and I do believe that they can give you credibility. I know that just one of my books has taken me offshore into some major opportunities. And I think if there's a book in you, then go for it. However, you don't have to have a book, but I do think it comes down to finding ways in which you can articulate and show and demonstrate your thought leadership. And books are a very common, known way of demonstrating that. So I would be encouraging, but it doesn't mean you have to. And here's the other thing. Right now, it seems to be really kind of popular to do a thin book, so that it's, you if you've got a domestic flight that's only maybe 2 hours, it's a cover to cover in the 2-hour flight. For whoever your target audience is. So just bear in mind that, don't overthink it. But I'm not articulating myself very well because
That's
this is a
okay.
hard question. It is a tough question because I don't want people to think that you have to have a book, because yet here I am with 4 writing my 5th, and that works for me.
Yeah,
You've
but
got
we
to do
probably
what
both
works
know
for you.
professional speakers who don't have a book.
That's right. And it's, they have found ways to articulate their thought leadership, and that's what it comes down to, book or no book. So, yeah.
I think a lot of people are using podcasts to
Yes.
demonstrate that as well now. So there's different ways for sure. One other question, and this was another one that was specifically asked by someone in my audience. What would you recommend to new speakers who are trying to get paid speaking work?
This was advice that was given to me by, do you know, the audience may know this person as well, Alan Pease. He's famous for body language, the body language expert, and he's Australian, but he was big in the UK and also in Russia, and he had TV shows, and he talks all about communication and particularly body language. And so he was saying, when he was delivering a presentation to emerging speakers a long time ago, and his advice was, go about 200 kilometers or 100 and something miles from home and deliver your speech for a chicken dinner. You know, practice for free further away from home, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
All right.
And so, you know, the further away from home, you can mess it up, so to speak. And I thought that's quite interesting. And then as you move closer to home, you know, start asking for the fee. And the other way I think is also understanding if it's about money or an exchange of value. And so maybe you'll find that as you're an emerging speaker, there might not be a whole lot of people willing to pay your fee, but they may be willing to take photos, video it for you, give you 3 video testimonials. If you're great, they'll give you 3, you know, qualified referrals. So think of a value exchange as well. But I think also, when you're being approached to do a presentation and someone asks you your fee, say the number and then be quiet. Yeah, you don't say the number and say, but it's
negotiable.
Yeah, but it's negotiable.
Yeah. And it is hard when you're new to speaking, I think, to do that, and you know, because you really want the opportunities. But I think that's really, really fabulous. Very, very, very sound advice, actually. So thank you. So this has been so super. There's so many wonderful tips in there, and I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your expertise. How can people find out more about what you do?
Oh, just Google my name, Sally Foley-Lewis, because there's one of me, baby, and that's all there needs to be. So just happy to be connected on LinkedIn, and check out the website, sallyfoleylewis.com. So I don't have a different business name simply because I couldn't think of one.
So I will put all the links to all your social media and etc. With this video when I publish it. And once again, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you helping me to celebrate my 10 years as well, and you sharing your tips with us. Thanks again.
Happy 10, Mel. Thank you.